Today's topic comes from Math 8 Foundations, Add and Subtract Integers. We're working on our focus standard from 8th grade expressions and equations. Analyze and solve linear equations and pairs of simultaneous linear equations. So this is what we're working up to, but we wanted to review a few things here. So our central question today is, how do the rules for adding and subtracting integers compare? So, as always, please set up your header, making sure to include today's date, then set up your question column and your note column, pausing the video if you need to, and then resume the video when you're ready to begin. So what I've created for today is a flowchart, trying to help remember some of the shortcuts to the rules when adding and subtracting integers. So there's basically 3 steps. And so the step 1 would be to identify the operation, step 2 would be to notice the signs, and step 3 would be to perform the calculations. So here's our flowchart. If you're adding integers and you notice right away that it's an addition problem, then you're going to follow these steps, and I will talk through them in a moment. If you are subtracting, if you notice the operation for the problem is subtracting, then you're going to follow these steps. And I'm actually going to start here. So one of the things that we start to look at in 8th grade is how can we write something equivalent? What is another way to write this that's going to make it more simple for me to solve the problem? So subtracting integers is one of those places. Subtracting something is the same as adding its opposite. So what we can do to simplify working when we see a problem that has a subtracting integers is first we can change it from a subtraction problem to an addition problem, and then we're going to change the sign of the second number. Like I said, it's going to be adding its opposite. So when you see a subtraction problem, you can change it to addition as long as you also change the sign of the second number. And then you just follow the rules for adding. So that way you really only have to learn one set of rules. So when adding integers, you first have to check the signs of the add-ins. If you're adding 2 positive values or 2 negative values, you're going to add as you would expect to, and the sum will keep the same sign. So if you're adding 2 negative numbers, you're going to add those values together, and your answer should be more negative. If you're adding 2 values that are both positive, you're going to add them together, and then you're going to get an answer, a sum, that is more positive. If you have an addition problem and the signs are different, we're going to treat it as subtraction, and the sum will take the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. So, while it may sound or look confusing here, take a moment, as always, pausing the video if you need to. Make sure you have this all down, because I am going to refer back to it, and I would hope that you would refer back to it as needed as you work on refreshing the rules for adding and subtracting integers. So now we're going to take a look at some examples. So we have addition examples here, and laid out with the same 3 steps from up here. So step 1 is we're identifying the operation, and that's already been done for you. I have 2 examples that I'm identifying as addition, and 2 examples I'm identifying for you as subtraction. So let's take it one step at a time. In this first problem, we are given 5 plus negative 7 equals n. So it is an addition problem. So I'm up here, and I'm going to look, I'm adding integers. I'm checking the signs. The signs are different. This is a positive 5, and this is a negative 7. So for different signs, I actually subtract, and the sign is the answer, or the sum, is going to take the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. So let's take a closer look at this. So I have 5 plus negative 7, and one thing we know with addition is we can actually rewrite that, so we can have negative 7 plus 5, so we can switch these around. And when we think about subtracting this, what we're really doing is looking and say, what can I cancel out and what am I left with? So every one of these, and here are my 7 negatives, so I set it up with this. Here are my 7 negatives, and here are my 5 positives. If I overlap these, anything that overlaps is going to cancel out. This negative and positive cancel out, that negative and positive cancel out. It does so for all 5 of these. And what I'm left with is 2 negatives. So some people can see that in their head as 7 minus 5 is 2, right? 7 negatives, taking away 5 positives, is going to leave me with 2 negatives. So we know that our answer is going to take the sign of this one that has a larger absolute value, the furthest distance, and so it becomes -2. Let's take a look here. Here's another example where our signs are different. So we have 9 plus -6 equals m, trying to figure out what m is. So we can take another look at that. So we could think about, well, what's 9 minus 6? Well, that would be 3. And it's going to be positive because positive 9 is further from 0 than -6 is from 0. We can look at that with a visual aid as well. So here are my 9 positives. Here are my 6 negatives. Subtraction is kind of canceling out, right? So I could overlap. Anything that overlaps is going to cancel out. So 6 of the 9 positives are going to cancel out, and I'm left with 3, and they're all positive. So m is positive 3. Let's take a look at these subtraction examples. So I have 4 minus -8 equals x. I'm trying to figure out what x equals. So according to this, it says I can change it from subtraction to addition. So I've changed it from subtraction to addition, and I changed the sign of the second number. So if I change this to addition, I have to change it from a -8 to a +8. And now I just follow the rules for adding. Well, now this looks like a very simple problem. I have 4 plus 8. They're both positive, so there's nothing to cancel out. And what I end up with is 12 positive, so x equals 12. Let's look at our final example. I have -3 minus 2. So again, our rules say that, well, I can change it from subtraction to addition, and then change this from a positive to a negative. And so now I'm adding -3 plus -2, and what I end up with is 3 negatives plus 2 more negatives is going to make it -5. So this is meant to be helpful. I know for some of my students, they don't like the flowchart. Maybe you found something here, maybe you like this visual model most. This is just meant to be a reference guide for you if you find yourself getting stuck with a problem as we're working through equations and expressions, and to refer back to. We'll also have some practice in Khan Academy. What's most important right now is that you make sure that your notes are all complete, that you have your full header, that you have this flowchart copied down, as well as our example problems and your summary section, and that you come to class ready to compare notes and observations and do more problems like this.